I'm Jessica Peresta, host of the Elementary Music Teacher Podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another great episode of My EdTech Life. I am excited to be here with you all on this Saturday morning. As always, just my heart is so full of joy. I'm just really excited because I am in my happy place, and obviously, we get to talk to amazing educators from around the world and here in the US and just everywhere. So, thank you so much for making us part of your day, part of your listening pleasure. And thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody out there. Guys, thank you so much for the support on Spotify, on Apple. Thank you so much for going to visit our website and also for YouTube. We're trying to get 1,000 subscribers. So thank you so much for visiting, subscribing us, giving us a like. We really appreciate all of your support. And again, it just really fills my heart with joy that we are bringing you some amazing conversations, amazing content with wonderful educators such as this morning. And I am so excited about today because today it's going to be an awesomely fun episode. It might be a little feel fun if you kind of pick up on that a little bit, but that's what we're looking forward to. So I would love to welcome to the show our amazing guest this morning, Trisha Fugelstad, who is joining us. Trisha, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing really well. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, Fons.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here and just wanting to let you know, been a huge fan of your work for a very, very long time and definitely have found some inspiration of my own through your work and through some of the apps that you have used. So thank you so much for what it is that you do, what it is that you share, and the difference that you're making in your schools, with your kids, and just with everybody, especially that follows you and the things that you share. So, thank you so much for that. All right. So, Trisha, let's go ahead and get started because we definitely have a lot to talk about. And I'm really, really excited about today's conversation. So, before we dive into the heart of the matter, I would just love for our audience members who will be listening to this show and are getting to know who you are for the very first time, if you can give us a little brief introduction and what your context in the education space is.
Sure. So I'm Trisha Fugelstad. I'm a K-5 elementary art teacher. I'm also a K-12 integration specialist. I'm a new author, illustrator, and animator of an augmented reality children's book that deals with social emotional learning lessons. And I've been teaching for quite a while, and I integrate technology into what I do, and lots of STEAM and musical stuff and fugal flicks, and we have a lot of fugal fun.
I love it. I love it. And I could definitely, again, we'll be putting up those links through the chat, but you'll be able to find that in the show notes. But the amount of output as far as just the inspiration, seeing your kids get so excited about learning, and then, of course, the opportunities that you've had, and of course, the recognition has been great. So you are definitely in for a treat today with this conversation, ladies and gentlemen. So I would like to start with asking you just a little bit more about your origin story, Trisha. So, as you know, every superhero has an origin story, and I always tell everybody that comes on the show, if you get invited to the show and you get to be here, it's just really because you're somebody that I look up to and I respect, and I liken those people to superheroes because they're my edgy superheroes. But we know that everybody has an origin story. So can you kind of take us back a little bit into the beginning of your career and maybe share some, moments that you've had as far as, working in the elementary space and things that maybe inspired you to go into that field of becoming that, illustrator and book creator that you are now as well?
So this origin story is, um, gosh, how do I begin? I think I have to explain that I am when I was a student, I was kind of invisible. I was the middle of the road kind of student. I showed up, I did my assignments, I didn't interrupt the teacher, I didn't act out in any way. I did what was expected. And actually, on every report card I had growing up, it said, "Pleasure to have in class." And the thing about being the middle of the road kind of student is that you didn't get any accommodations. You're like the general population. So nobody challenged me with extra things, and nobody, helped me along one on one with other kinds of learning issues. And so I was kind of, I don't know, begging for attention that I didn't know how to ask for. And so you can see in what I'm sharing with my students now that I have blossomed into something a little bit more. Like I do share now, but I didn't when I was younger. I didn't take risks. I didn't ask for attention. I missed a lot of opportunities in life because of it. And I found at a very young age, I think in kindergarten, when we were studying the letter A and I colored an apple, that I really wanted to be an artist because I colored that apple really well and the teacher liked it. And I thought, okay, there I go. I'm going to be an artist. But being an artist meant I could do it quietly and I didn't disturb anybody, and I didn't really have to ask for extra help. And I think that was like a downfall. It was like really good foundation for me to always be making art and find a way to be creative, an avenue for my creativity. But when I was in college, I was like, okay, I want to be an artist, but I have no experience with promoting myself. I don't know how to advocate for myself. I don't know how to make money as an artist. So what am I going to do? I mean, I was, studying for a fine arts degree, University of Illinois, and somewhere around my sophomore year, I'm like, I got to change. I got to do something. So I stumbled into art education and I'm like, oh, maybe I can do this because I could still be an artist, and I'm okay with kids. And so I'll just go forward. But I didn't know what I was in for. I mean, to be somebody who didn't speak up in class and then all of a sudden I have to lead the class, it was such a huge shift for me. And I didn't feel really well prepared, and I started my first year, and I was just so stressed out. I didn't have like natural tools for teaching. I feel like I started from scratch, and I stumbled all the way through until like maybe 5 years before I really felt like I had a groove.
Yeah.
So I did get a groove, and I actually did, you know, do well, and we had some successes. But I, I wasn't a likely teacher, I don't think. And but I think in my personal struggles as, trying to be a leader when I was never a leader, and trying to advocate for students and give them visibility and encourage them to come out of their shell, I mean, that's really made a big difference for me. I had to model that. So I've done almost all of my growing in life in the classroom.
Wow, that is such an amazing story. It's great to get to know and make those connections. And I'm sure that there are many educators out there that may have gone through that at their initial stage, but or maybe going through that now. But thank you so much for sharing that, because like you said, even now knowing where you were coming from, like growing up, and then where you're at now, but now you're helping the students have that creative outlet, and that maybe like you said, you didn't have that opportunity as much coming in, through your classes, but now you get to be leading these wonderful kids in some amazing work, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But I also want to share, that you have done such great work in the classroom, because you, throughout your career, you've received various accolades, in your career. So obviously, the Trisha that thinks that she is not a leader has definitely done some wonderful things, and you have grown within your space and helping the students grow, and you have received, accolades from ISTE, I said, NAEA, and so on. So I want to ask you, for just hearing your story right now, and how you felt, can you share maybe some of those key moments when you received some of those awards, and how meaningful was that for you to be recognized for that work that you're doing?
Wow. So I was in my classroom doing, what you do. I closed my door and I experimented, and I really liked that the door was closed. That way nobody was watching me stumble around and fail. And and then I would open the door when I felt confident and say, "Hey, look at this cool thing we did." And then social media became a bigger thing, and Twitter started. If you look at my Twitter account now, it looks like I only recently started Twitter, but I started in 2007 under Fugal Fund, and then I lost my account. I I shared a Taylor Swift song, and that was the end of my entire account. Oh my gosh. So anyway, that I learned, don't do that. But it was an augmented reality thing, and it was really cool. But anyway, so I started sharing on Twitter, and it helped me gain a lot of confidence that the things that I was doing behind closed doors in my room with my students was something other people wanted to see and learn more about. And so I started to share little by little. And I think I've been teaching for 15 years before I actually started to actually step out of the classroom and show people in conferences or presentations. And then people liked it, and I was recognized and nominated for things, and it was wonderful. But I seriously didn't know that the journey of being too shy to participate in class, not, you know, and like missing opportunities, missing, and then finally having a reason to share because I wanted to highlight my students and show what they're doing made me bolder. It gave me the motivation to go ahead and try. And, it makes me nervous to step out of my comfort zone, but I do feel myself growing. And if I can keep my eye on what the purpose is, it makes it a lot easier.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's great to see, like you mentioned, yes, you put out such great content and my Instagram feed and everything. And I love it because you're so creative and so inspiring. And, and it's so interesting. And if I may, just say, like, it's interesting that, we see that kind of finished, polished product on social media, but here we're having this conversation, and it's just being very open and vulnerable. And I respect that, because oftentimes many people, educators, may see like, oh my gosh, like I could never do that, or look at them like they're, big, and they, but you don't understand the hours of work that goes into it. You don't understand the background story. So this is great. And this is what I love about the podcast, just being able to open up and making those connections, and finding somebody that you can relate to and feel inspired by. And so it's really exciting to hear your story, and because it's really resonating with me too as well. So I mean, it's just great. And one thing that I love that you mentioned too is, like, oftentimes as teachers, we do close our doors, and we're like, hey, we're going to close our doors because obviously you may feel a little bit insecure, you may not be sure, and like you said, you're barely kind of, getting into the flow of things. But then, man, once you're ready to go, it's like, hey, doors are open, come on in, check this out, and so on. And it just takes a little bit of time, but I'm glad that you share that, because all our educators, and especially first year educators, third year educators, all educators definitely need to hear that for sure. All right. So now I want to talk to you about, of course, your passion for art, because that's exactly what I see a lot of through your content and through obviously what you do with your students. So I want to talk a little bit about what inspired you to start innovating within your art class and experimenting with different mediums. So tell me a little bit about the process behind blending the digital and physical art in your classes, and what sparked that innovative approach?
So I have been teaching for so long that there was, well, let's not do the math, but let's just say that when I started teaching, there wasn't a computer in my room. We didn't have those yet. And they existed, but they didn't exist in my art room. It just, the investment wasn't there yet. And I remember how I had to manage teaching lessons. And if I wanted to do really wonderful things with my students, I would want to do a multi-week project. Maybe this week we do the sketch, then next week we finalize the drawing, then the week after that we begin painting, and then maybe by the fourth week we are finalizing the work. And so in this process, if I'm teaching this without any technology, I am using a whiteboard and I'm drawing as big as I can so they get to get, and I'm reinventing it every time. I had third grade, but my fifth graders are coming. Erase the whiteboard, start all over, hold it. You're on step 3, so let me see if I can get myself caught up on. It was just ridiculous how much labor. And then, like, okay, well, I could draw it really big on picture paper and hold it up so they can see what the material is. But that was like simple struggles, like they couldn't see what I'm talking about. I wanted to like show them that a cylinder, has a circle at the top, but when you hold it from the side, it becomes an oval. And I can show you one-on-one, but when it's a whole class of 24 kids, you can't understand it very well. So the idea of just getting a projector in my room and being able to hook it up to something where, like, a document camera, it just was so basic. But I had to advocate for that. And so I had to write a grant, and I was the first person in my building to get a projector and a computer hookup. And the following year, everybody got one. But I was like, this is what's going to transform how I instruct my students. And so I was paying attention to where they were investing the technology in the building, at central office, in the library. And I'd be like, I bet that could be useful for me. And they say, well, go write a grant. So I got an interactive board. I was the first one in the building to get an interactive board. And it did make a difference. We were doing drag and drop and digitally drawing things before we create it physically. And then I'm like, okay, I'm onto something here. I've got all these tools now. I've got a document camera, interactive board, I've got a projector and a computer, and it's making a difference for instruction. Is there a way we can get the kids to have some digital art production? And around 2000, well, before iPads, we tried all these different ways, and we had lots of failures, and that's where I'd keep the door closed. We're failing in here, sorry. I'll open the door later or take some really unique pictures and then like tell you about how we kind of got this to work. But we failed a lot. And when the iPads came, we started to get it. We had a breakthrough moment. And the difference is where we were touching is where we were drawing. And when we were using a trackpad, we just weren't getting enough practice at that time. Maybe kids are different now because they had more gaming experience and more computer experience. But back then, we were failing, and we were spending our whole class period just trying to figure out how to use a trackpad or a mouse. And so when the iPads came, we could just go right to drawing. And then I'm like, okay, now I need to integrate these iPads into what we do here without losing what we do here, and make it this meaningful and not just play. And play is fun, but we only have a limited amount of time. If I see you once a week, and I want this to be valuable. And so I started to design these transdigital lessons. And I'm calling it transdigital because it's both physical and digital. And so at first it started out like we make a piece of art physically, and then we do a digital extension in some way. And that digital extension, you know, didn't necessarily relate directly to what we made physically. But then it was somewhere around the time that we made robots in 5th grade that we came up with this transdigital lesson where the physical art and the digital extension matched perfectly. And so what it was is the kids made these beautiful robot paintings where they were learning how to turn shape into form, and they used color balance, and they were full of creative solutions and their robot had purpose in some way. They knew the story. But in order to tell the story, we animated these robots where you can see more of what their purpose was, and you can watch them kind of come to life. Maybe they blinked, or maybe a gauge moved, or some sort of indicator flashed. And they all of a sudden had this robot and a digital animation of the robot. And then we needed a way to showcase that. And since they were perfectly matched in size, the best way that we could come up with for displaying it was to make it come to life with augmented reality. So here's an example. So we had the robots, and then the robot video, the animations were the same dimensions, so that when you scan it with augmented reality apps, it looked like it came alive on the page because it matched perfectly. And that was the magic that just really triggered this joy response for me. And it was joyful for the children too. But then we had to figure out, like, how do we communicate this to the community that this cool thing is happening? How did they get this experience? So that started a journey in itself, because that wasn't an easy solution. We had to find the right app. We had to find the right way of sharing, and it made me want so badly to make a book, something that was print material that could be scanned and come to life. So I played with print material, but like, this is a Shutterfly book, So I wasn't expecting all the parents to buy a Shutterfly book. So I would make one, and then during open house, I'd show them whoever stopped in the art room. So like maybe 10, 15 parents would get to find out the cool things we're doing. So I felt a little stuck, but it planted a seed for me for something that came later.
Excellent. And I love, just that innovation and just that thought process and just taking, saying, hey, this is what I need. I want to try it out, and just going for it and learning. And you're learning along with your kids, and you're picking up from them. They're learning from you. And that's that experience that I love, that it just makes it just so wonderful. So now I want to ask you about that, not just that experience, but within obviously your students that come in. I want to ask you though first, your students, do they only get to see you once a week still, or?
Yeah, art is only once a week. Right?
Okay. Okay. So, I want to ask you, within the time frame that you started, these transdigital lessons and so on, what have you noticed as far as your students? What impact have these lessons made on them, and how do they demonstrate their learning, just through these projects as well?
So this became more regular. And so things that I could do with 5th graders only at first, I could move younger and younger and younger, being able to go through very detailed steps with them. And this was a first for me. Like, what age is appropriate for these things that we're doing? How much can these kids handle? So I had this hologram lesson that I did. I started out with 5th graders. So we would create, oh, I have one. So we create these little prisms, and then on the iPad, we made ghosts that animate, and we copied it 4 times, so it's in a rotation. Or yeah, you can see it 4 times. And then it animates continuously in the Do Ink animation app. And with the prism, you can see it kind of pull up, and you can watch it like lift from the iPad. And then we turn off the lights, and we've got like haunted iPads. And it was a really fun idea for Halloween. I had this lesson all step by step and with a tutorial and stuff in my Fugal Fun lessons. But so I did it with 5th graders. And then I showed it to the 4th graders. I'm like, is this something you guys can do? And they're like, yes, yes. So we did it. And, the test was, can we get it done in one class period? Because this was just a one-time thing I wanted to do. So they begged, please, can we do it? Because it was so cool. And they, rocked it. And then the 3rd graders were shown. And they're like, we can do this. And so they did it. And then I'm like, okay, well, 2nd graders, let me show you what the big kids do. And they're like, we can do this. So we did it with 2nd grade. And 1st grade, no. But we got as low as 2nd grade in one class period. They understood the concept. They could handle all of the little detailed steps of drawing and animating. And it was amazing. So it's teaching me, it's teaching them. And they're so motivated that they're willing to, pay attention and follow directions and get it all done. So
Yeah.
I feel like they're pretty skilled, and they're also helping each other, and their motivation level really makes a difference. So this wasn't just about being fun and haunted. I mean, we were using flipbook animation skills. We were learning about movement. We were duplicating and rotating and looking at a prism. So we were bringing in a lot of concepts, and they were begging to do it. Isn't that the way learning should be? That kind of fun?
Absolutely. And what I love that you did there is, oftentimes as educators, and we still see it today, we don't think that our students are able to do something. Like there's just that assumption because of the grade level and so on. But it doesn't hurt to try. It's better for you to find out and say like, oh wow, they were able to do it, than no, I'm not going to even try it because they're 2nd graders, they're not going to get it. But here, the fact that you're willing to take a risk, and I love that risk taking aspect, like in everything that I'm hearing from you, Trisha, is like you're definitely a risk taker, and it has paid off in dividends because your students have learned so much. The engagement has been there, and you yourself, like you said, you're learning too, like, hey, I went from 5th grade all the way to 2nd grade and they're able to do it. And you didn't what's the word I'm looking for, I guess, you just didn't make that assumption that no, they're too small. Like you just said, okay, let's give it a shot, let's try it out, and if it doesn't work, no biggie. We'll just adapt, we'll improvise, we'll overcome this little barrier, and we'll go into something else. But they were successful with it, and I absolutely love that. And I think that that excitement that you build up for them is really just wonderful, and they need that a lot more, and not just for art class but in every class. So I want to ask you too about some of the successes that your students have had through your leadership in the sense of the Fugal Flicks. So tell us a little bit about this, because many people, again, they may be listening to this podcast, they may just be hearing about you for the first time, and I assure you that after today, your social medias are gonna numbers are gonna go up as far as follows. But tell us a little bit about Fugal Flicks, because this is amazing that your student creations have been screened at international film festivals. So tell us about that experience.
It's mind blowing to me that this happened at all. But so that little girl in me that never really participated in much wanted to sing and wanted to dance and wanted to act, but didn't try because, that's the way it was when I was little. I just didn't expand out of my safe little art world where I just drew. That was it. So when I got to the classroom, I started to, grow, and I started thinking about the things that would have made me happy when I was little. And I started thinking, well, can I do some of the things for my students that I would have wanted to do? when I was little. This is touching me for a second. But I started to ask them if they would want to make movies and if they would be willing to sing and dance in the movies. And if we could just explore, different fun technology effects and tell stories in movies. But we'd only do it if the movie could communicate something that was useful for art, so we could save it and show it to everybody when that art concept needed to be taught. So if we could do it that way, then it's worth, everybody's effort because it becomes a future resource for teaching. So one example is there's an app called the Do Ink Green Screen app. When they were in beta, I was already using their Do Ink animation app, which is less known, but I love it. And that's the app that I use for the hologram effect. And so they reached out to me and they said, would you be on our beta testing team and help us get this app to market? And I said, okay, yes, I would love to do that, but I'm going to see if I can get a group of kids to come together and use it to make a fugal flick. And then I got my group of volunteers together. We came up with an art topic. We wanted to do illustration. We wanted to explain that the importance of illustration and how it helps you understand the text when you're reading. And then we thought it would be really fun to illustrate and then interact with our illustrations with green screen and animation. And we're like, big concept, and let's see if this app will support it. And it did. It was amazing. The kids were on the beta testing team and things weren't working, and we'd write to the programmer. His name is so at the Do Ink company, we'd write them and get him feedback, and then he'd fix it, and the next day we'd get an update and we'd try again, and there's something wrong, and we'd let him know and he'd fix it. And then before we were done with the movie, they had fixed their app and were able to release it to the iTunes store. And we released our movie to a film festival and won first place. Super, super exciting for everybody when the kids got to go up on stage and talk about their movie making experience and say that they were on a beta testing team for an app that now has had hundreds and hundreds of thousands of downloads around the world. And I'm just boggled just even telling that story. But their movie is so cute. It's called, gosh, I just forgot what it's called. Allow Us to Illustrate. That's it. Allow Us to Illustrate. And it's a little musical, and they dance with their illustrations, and they explain through the lyrics of the song how valuable illustrations are, which is foreshadowing something in my life.
Absolutely. And it's a great segue into what we're talking about. But I just wanted to go back to that you just shared. I mean, I don't know. This is very interesting, like, with this story, like just the connection and everything about everything that you're saying. And, going back to the way you started the story, your origin story, just very quiet, not seeing yourself as a leader. But everything that I hear has been like, wow, you're such a great leader. And, like you said, it's something that took a little bit of practice and work. And now, I mean, you're a great leader to your students, and the fact that you've been able to lead them to create and have opportunities that many kids do not get the opportunity to have. But because you were willing to take a risk and do this, I applaud you. And this is what, for me, this is what really fills my bucket and just fills me with joy when I get to have these conversations and hear the work that you're doing, and just the passion really comes through. And so I'm blown away too that the students also get to be on stage. And like you mentioned, what a huge thing to say, like, oh yeah, I was part of a beta team. I'm a fifth grader, but yeah, I was a beta tester for this app, and they have that forever. That's an experience that, can change a mindset, can change, their path, for what they were planning on doing, and just go out and just say like, hey, this is what I can do. and somebody believed in me and we did it, and that's amazing. So thank you
That
so much for.
reminds. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
I You just said something and it reminded me of something that I wanted to share really quick. When I worked with a group of students who wanted to make a fugal flick on um, trying to convince their classmates to pick up the stuff that gets left on the floor of the art room at the end of the day. And so they made a movie called Swept Away, and they were super cute about it. There was auditions for it and everything, and they wanted to like have their classmates audition and sing. And this little boy, who was just a fourth grader, he did a little solo audition to play the part of the eraser, the eraser that gets left on the floor. They took it so seriously. And he did this little solo, and his feedback that he received was that he was the best boy voice they had ever heard. And it built him up in so much confidence that, well, they just did an amazing job on this movie. It's called Swept Away. It won first place at a film festival in Washington, D.C. called the Shorty Awards, and it's an adorable little story. And but later, when this little boy was a college student, he had joined the traveling glee club, and he did a performance at the building, at my building. And he came back, and I'm like, "Hey, do you remember those days when you were the eraser?" And I'm like, "It's so awesome that you went into singing and that you're doing this." He's like, "Mrs. Fugelstad, that's why I'm doing this."
That is so powerful. I love it. I love it. And shout out to Amanda here who's joining us also. She just commented here like so much student agency and autonomy. And that's definitely so important. And then when you hear that, feedback from a student, I mean, the difference that we can make, the difference that you have made is just wonderful. But all right. So also, like we were talking about that segue, and we're going to talk about this next part here because ta-da, we're going to be talking about Peter O'Meter. And look at that. That's your name on there. So that's wonderful. I am so excited to talk about this. And I shared with you my little story about my book, as far as, getting lost, and then they had to send me another.
Oh, yeah.
But so I want to know, all right, so let's talk about this here. So the inspiration, can you share a little bit about, or share, I guess, not a little, but share as much as you like about the inspiration behind this book, and obviously the AR component, the SEL component of Peter O'Meter.
Sure. So Peter Meter is a robot that becomes emotional when his buttons are pushed. He has a newly upgraded emotion panel. You can see it on his chest here, and he needs calibration. So he's not sure which button to push in different situations that he encounters during the day. So it's an interactive story, and just if you read it physically, it kind of breaks the fourth wall, and Peter says, "Hi, reader, it's Peter. I need your advice. Which button should I press on my emotion device?" So he's asking you to evaluate at that moment. Go ahead and empathize with his situation. What is he going through? What feeling might he be having? And give him advice about which button to press. And as I was working on, well, I guess I should back it up. The reason why I had the privilege and honor of being able to do a book is because I had met Amanda Fox, and Amanda Fox had been a part of the Green Screen Summit, and I was a co-host of the Green Screen Summit with Erica Sandstrom. And I found that Amanda Fox had written Margarettown, and it was in her bio while I was putting that together for the summit. And it said that it was an augmented reality children's book. I'm like, what? Hold it. That fits perfectly with my vision and my path for what I want to see for students. we've got these transdigital projects, and it's print material. That's the way to communicate the transdigital art that I want to make with kids. And maybe the way I can do that is by writing an augmented reality book. So I pitched the story. And well, actually, no, I didn't pitch Peter and Meter. I pitched the Snow Flurry Fairy, which is coming. And I explained how I wanted the Snow Flurry Fairy to be an augmented reality story. We'd see this happening, and then they would start an animation on this page, and it would be musical, and it would move, and all these things. And then they got distracted by the robots on my wall. So there's a couple robots back here, and they're like, "Tell me about those robots." And I'm like, oh, those are examples for my students. Those are my emotional robots, and there's 6 of them in this room, and they each represent a different emotion, and they come to life with augmented reality. And they're like, I bet there's a story there. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I bet there is a story. And that's how I began to even imagine where Peter and Meter would come from, and he evolved out of that. But I was connected with robots and emotions before, that book pitch. But so I'm really excited about the idea that this is an augmented reality book, and it's augmented reality in 2 different ways. There's 2-dimensional augmented reality. So it's all powered by Quiver Vision. So they have a free app. All of the content is free. And so when you scan it, many of the images in the book, like so many, like more than they were bargaining for when they said they'd do this, probably. I'm like, oh, really? I can do that? So I just did it. Almost every opportunity for an image to move, it moves. And then they included a piece in it that has a 3D model, and that is the signature move of Quiver Vision. They make coloring pages that come to life with augmented reality, turn into a 3D model, and have an interactive component. And so that piece is in this book right here. And so it could be printed, and you can experience this without the book for free. And it all comes to life with that QR code, which is part of that free handout that we can put the URL to.
Yes.
And then people can experience that 3D model. And the 3D model is amazing. So it's the actual character of Peter coming to life as a 3D model. And then you can press his buttons and cycle through his emotions and see his face changes, and there's animation and music to match each emotion. So there's the bit.ly at the bottom if you wanted to just download that one page and explore Peter and Meter and his emotions. You can check it out.
Yes, and that's wonderful. And I've been playing around with it. So thank you also, Trisha, for letting us have this. And please, guys, make sure you type it in just the way you see it. It is case sensitive, so please make sure and you get some amazing resources there that are free. And obviously, make sure you download your Quiver app as well, which is a great app. For just anything. They have got some great content there as well that is free. Some that is definitely well worth the price. So depending on what your needs are, they definitely have something available for you. And it's a very low barrier to entry way into getting that, the 2D and the AR, component of it. And it really is a lot of fun. So definitely check that out. So I wanted to ask you here as far as the book is concerned too. And, this link also that I just took off, I will be putting it in the comments too as well. And it'll be on the show notes. But as far as the book is concerned, I know you told us a little bit about it as far as the components, and we're talking about Peter and managing his emotions and so on. So, tell us a little bit about that as far as, you know, what is it? What's the message that you're trying to share here with our students? I guess the overall arching, Peter O'Meter message, and why was that something that you thought of? Is it through your experience, in working with students? So tell us a little bit about that.
So, social emotional learning is embedded into a lot of the things that I do. I want children to, I mean, artistically, it's really good to learn how to express feelings and emotions through your art, but you also have to be able to identify them first and be in touch with your own feelings and also manage them in a way so that you're ready to learn in a school environment. All those things come to mind when I'm putting this story together. There's a scene in the book that is right out of my art room, basically. Kids are very excited when they come to art, like super excited, like crazy, bouncing off the walls, coming down. I mean, silly, excited. And it's really hard sometimes to like dial it down and calm yourself, be ready to learn because, it's really fun, but we still have to listen and follow directions and, we do some serious learning here. And so there's a scene where the kids are, or the robots are really excited at recess and they just have a really fun experience. And then the bell rings and it's time to go in. And they need to figure out which button to press to help calm them down. And there's a page where you can just kind of see the different management strategies that Peter goes through to calm himself down. There's a hashtag on TikTok called recess drama, and it's a big issue for teachers. There is a lot of stuff the kids are bringing in from recess. I'm seeing the silliness, but there's also the conflicts that come in from recess, and it just really interrupts learning, and they need some management. So that's just one piece of the social emotional learning. I mean, there's other things going on in this story, but that I think is enough for me to have wanted to buy the book. I wanted to read that, and I made it into a little poster for your calm down corner. It's in the free activity pack that you can download from the Teacher Goals website. And there's like a bazillion things in that free activity pack that help pull out the meaning in this story, because everything has meaning in this story. And this would be a very long podcast if I explained everything to you. But the activity pack pulls out the science connections, the technology connections, engineering, art and math, and the social emotional learning all into something that can just create a unit of study for any elementary school classroom.
Perfect. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add to the stream just real quickly that activity pack that is here. And let's see if we can. There we go. Just want to make sure we don't hide ourselves here. But this is what was, or like you mentioned, on the Teacher Goals website that you can go and download. And it's got the Peter O-Meter activity pack. And like you mentioned here, you've got a great little table of contents of, everything. What I loved about it too was just being able to meet the robots, and I love it because each robot has their own little personality. And I love here too as well, like, the is this the students that drew it, the inspiration behind it?
Yes. So remember that robot project that I was telling you about?
Mm-hmm.
When I sat down to invent the characters for the story, I thought, why don't I go and look at what my fifth graders made? They were being so creative. And so I pulled out 6 of them and reworked them to turn into characters. And so those 6 students are being showcased in the book. They're in the back of the book, and they're also in the activity packet that they inspired me.
This is amazing. I love it. And of course, here you've got instructions on how to download the Quiver app by scanning the QR code. And like you mentioned here, you've got the color scan explorer here where they would color Peter O-Meter here and they would pop out. So this you can go and print out. But what I love here is like the robots, they all have their story. Here you've got Peter. And I love that, Peter's acronym, programmable, empathetic, touch sensitive, emotional robot. And of course, if you scan this with the Quiver app, which I wasn't able to get working right now to show here, but I did want to show you the activity pack. You've got some great stuff, and the stories behind the robots, the fun facts, and then of course the discussion questions. This is something that I find that is a great value add for what you're getting here in the activity packs, to be able to lead a session with your students with some questions that are already here, to open up discussion and discourse amongst them, and just to talk things out. And I'm so appreciative for all of this. And it's 54 pages, everybody. So make sure there's plenty of content here that you can take from and sprinkle onto what you are already doing great, and to be able to have these conversations with your students. So definitely go check it out. I know I did put well, actually, yeah, you can go to the Teacher Goals website to get this, but also I will make sure we include that in the episode show notes as well. So, man, this is amazing. And I definitely encourage you. I did put in the link also for the book, so you can make sure that you visit Amazon and you make sure that you pick up this book, because this is a great book, not only for yourself to have some fun with and learn a little bit more about the AR component, but really the story behind it, and really the overarching theme. Definitely something that is very important. And so I want to thank you for taking that, like you said, going to that hashtag and that recess drama, seeing that there is a lot of things that are happening, and trying to, in your amazing way, find a way to solve some of these through discussion. And the fact that you also got some of your students their inspiration for some of these robots. Trisha, all I got to say is that even though from the beginning, you said you didn't see yourself as a leader, like this whole time, I've been just seeing leadership, 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 leadership. And so sometimes, ourselves, we may not see it, but it's, I guess, what others see. And I definitely see you as a wonderful leader in your school, a leader for your students, and a leader for the art community, the STEAM community, and the education community. So thank you for this conversation. Thank you for the inspiration, and thank you for the work, Trisha. I really appreciate everything that you've done.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Your words are so encouraging. I like being able to see myself through your eyes. I have to remember those words. Thank you.
Well, they're on the podcast and they're there forever. So we can replay that all the time. Oh, Heather's joining us here. It says, "Hey there, my second grade STEAM kids are so excited to see their robots come to life next Friday." That is
Woo!
awesome. Jesus, thank you so much. Jesus Sanchez Hernandez, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing. And Amanda, yay, bought the book already to share with my teams.
Wonderful.
Excellent. Awesome, guys. Well, thank you, Trisha. But before we wrap up, we always end the show with the last three questions here. And this is one of a lot of people's favorite segments here. So, question number one, Trisha, we know that Superman's weakness was that kryptonite, and kind of just caused him to kind of just cringe and get weak and so on. So, I want to ask you, through your experience that you've had for as many years as you've been in the classroom and in the education space, I want to ask you, in the current state of education, what would you say is your current edu kryptonite?
Boy, the way you're asking that question, you're gonna think you're probably expecting a very deep answer, but I was just gonna say coffee. If I didn't have coffee, I would run out of everything. There'd be nothing. I'm completely fueled on coffee. There was a time when I was little and I was getting addicted to coffee. It was as a very young person, and lots of side eye from other adults, like, "Hey, why is that little girl drinking coffee?" But I remember thinking, I watched my teacher drinking coffee during the school day, and I'm like, maybe I do want to be a teacher one day if I can drink coffee all day. I remember thinking, like, if I think I'd like to be a teacher if I could drink coffee all day.
I
So
love it. I love it. I'm with you too. Like, I mean, I have this little coffee bar in my office. So, yeah, in my office. So that way it's like it's there. I just turn around. So I have my desk facing this way, like the way I'm looking at you. And then all I have to do is just spin around. I got my little coffee bar, and then I just set up my coffee and I'm ready to go for the day. So, absolutely. I'm
as a
with
young
you on that.
as a young teacher, I remember doing a calculation once, realizing how much money I was spending on coffee. And then thinking, well, I could probably, afford other things in life if I didn't spend so much on coffee. But then I asked myself, well, what would the quality of life be at that point then? It's not, life.
Yes.
I
I
don't think I
love it.
want to skimp on that. I
Uh,
can't.
yeah, no, absolutely. It's like, do you want like Trisha at 100% or do you want Trisha at like 90%? And that 10% is equivalent to maybe 100% for other many people. So yeah, for sure. All right. So Trisha, next question is, if you could have a billboard with anything on it, what would it be and why?
Life is too short for long faces. That was my motto for many years. Life is too short for long faces. Not because I had it all figured out and I knew how to be happy in every situation. Sometimes mottos are there because you need to remind yourself of it often. So when I'd get myself all upset or whatever about a situation, I'd remind myself it's time to try to figure out how to enjoy today. Maybe I'm not getting everything I want out of, my idea of today, but um, my life is short. Life, you never know. And so, how can I make the most out of today and what I have?
Excellent. I love it. Thank you so much. And the last question, Trisha, is if you can go ahead and get one of your favorite hobbies outside of education and so on, but if you have a favorite hobby or activity that you can turn into a full time profession, what would it be?
I was thinking it'd be really fun to be a voice actor. I, I mean, I've always heard that my voice is unique, but I think I would have fun being a cartoon character. So.
I love that. Well, I can actually see both. I can see, but yeah, like so if those people that made a comment, yes, voice actor for sure, but definitely cartoon. Why not? Yeah, definitely. I love it. I love, see, this is great. Like, it's like truth is out there, you're being honest and you're being you, and I absolutely love it. So why not? I used to tell kids, or not I used to tell my kids at school when they asked, like, sir, did you always want to grow up to be a teacher? And I was like, no, of course not. He's like, well, what did you want to do? It's like, I wanted to be a dinosaur. I always said I want to be a dinosaur when I grow up. And so I'm sharing that openly to the public for the
That
very first
that's
time, but that's
Thank
what
you
I
for
wanted
sharing
to
that.
be. I wanted to be a dinosaur growing up.
There might still be a way. We could try to, think about it. So
Yeah,
it's so sweet.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Trisha, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for sharing your heart with us this morning and really just opening yourself up to hearing a little bit more about your story from obviously from the origin story and then just everything that you've been able to accomplish through your passion, your work, your dedication, and obviously taking risks and allowing your students to simply have fun and experiment. And we see how your students have been successful, how you've been successful, and now also too as an author here, Peter O'Meter. Make sure that you guys all pick it up on Amazon. Check it out. It is a wonderful book. And of course, the link will be in the show notes, the resources that Trisha, like we shared as far as the Peter O'Meter activity pack. We'll definitely put those in the show note links as well. So thank you all. Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Jesus, for stopping by here on the show, for dropping in your comments and so on. I really appreciate you all. And for all of you that are going to be listening this to on the replay or watching this as well, thank you so much as always for all of your support. I really appreciate just definitely all the shares, the likes, the follows, the comments, the emails. Thank you very much. Please continue to share our episodes, as what we're trying to do is just making those connections. We're trying to connect educators and creators one show at a time and bringing some amazing conversations and content into the education space to inspire our new educators and our veteran educators and educators at any level as well. So please make sure that you stop by our website at myedtech.life, myedtech.life, to check out this amazing episode and the other 224 wonderful episodes with educators, creators, founders, education practitioners, like I mentioned, that you can take some knowledge nuggets from, sprinkle them on to what you are already doing great. And also, if you would love to contribute to our mission, please stop by our merch store. We know that winter conference season is almost around the corner. We've got some great sweaters, and summer conference season is, well, next summer, but we've got some great caps too as well that'll keep your head warm during winter as well. And as you know, all of that goes back here into the show so we can continue to bring you some amazing conversations. So thank you all for joining us today. And until next time, my friends, don't forget, stay techie.